Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is the N.Cast podcast. I am your host, Brian D. Leifer, and I'm joined today by our founder, CEO, Prince.
Hey, what's up? How you doing, listeners?
So today we actually have something special for you all. We plan on diving deep into game theory. Prince and I are going to tackle this topic. Not only just the technical math concept behind the terminology, but also how it relates to business, psychology, and more. For the record, we're discussing this topic out of pure interest and curiosity. So any cool facts you would like to share with us or corrections that you'd like to make, be sure to give us a shout out on Twitter. And yeah, we really appreciate it. All right, so join us as we explore the mystery behind game theory and how it's used in our everyday lives.
Just to add on to feedback, we're always interested. We never shy away from criticism. Always trying to get better out here.
Yeah, if you think we suck, you know.
If it's valid like salad, only. Only if it's valid like salad. If your criticism is just hate, we're going to go past it. Scroll past.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to say we suck, just provide us with, evidence that we suck.
Yeah,
exactly. It's really helpful.
Exactly.
It's helpful.
It needs to be valid like salad. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so, I'll start us off. Before diving into the definition of game theory, let me share what is called the prisoner's dilemma, which is actually my favorite part about the concept.
Ooh, prisoner's dilemma.
Yep. So, say me and Prince here committed a crime.
A minor crime.
A minor crime, yes. Yeah. A minor crime. And we are both taken in for questioning. And we are both separated. And we don't particularly trust each other.
Mm-hmm. He could screw me over. I don't know what this guy's thinking.
Mm-hmm. He could screw me over too. So we don't know. I don't trust this guy right here. So we're taken into questioning. And say that we both do not confess to our crime. We would both receive 2 years in prison. However, if I confess and Prince here does not, I will receive no prison time. Prince could receive 8 years in prison.
And this is where snitches get stitches concept comes from. Because if you snitch, the other guy gets double the penalty. Mm-hmm. That's very screwed up.
Mm-hmm. See, there is factual evidence behind snitches get stitches.
Exactly.
And vice versa. If Prince snitches and I keep my lips shut, he gets off scot-free. I go in the slammer for extra time as well. Now, here's the interesting part. If we both confess to our crime, we would both receive 4 years in prison, let's say. So, when you look at it at a...
Why prison? Can we do fines?
Fines?
Yeah, because 4 years in prison for a minor crime. I'm thinking minor crime, I'm thinking graffiti. I'm thinking, I don't know.
Well, it depends on the state.
Yeah, but 4 years is like a B&E. You know what I mean? 4 years is stealing...
Yeah, if you want to get technical.
I'm just thinking, because you're doing a basic diagram for illustrating it for our audience. So,
I mean, this is the way that that's usually taught in class.
No, you're right. You're right.
Usually, this is how most people learn.
I just feel 4 years is extreme. It's we trust each other.
I mean, 4 years is better than say one of us snitches and the other doesn't, and we get double that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, the interesting part about this all is that the preferred method for both of us would be to confess. Because say I confess and Prince does not, I get no jail time. If I confess and Prince also confess, I receive jail time but less than I would if I did not confess and Prince did. So therefore, confessing is the dominant strategy.
And that's a cooperative strategy. I can't talk today. So that'd be a cooperative strategy.
Yes. So, how is this applied? So, me personally, I think this is really interesting when you apply it into game design. Because, as you may have known from my spotlight, I'm really into video games. I like talking about games. I like studying games. And game theory applied in video games at first feels a little complicated, but when you break it down to its science, it actually makes sense. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to use a very specific genre of games that I'm sure maybe a lot of you who have played a decent amount of games may have played once or twice.
So you're going to relate it to our listeners. Try to like...
Yeah, just make it easier for a discussion.
Because it could be very complicated if you're really diving into game theory.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trying to point interest in like what we find interesting about game theory, how it relates to our personal lives.
Yeah. So this is something some of our listeners may relate to, some may not, and some may have something to learn today.
Exactly.
So where was I? Yes, game theory and game design. So the specific genre I'm talking about here are fighting games. The reason why I'm using fighting games is because unlike other sort of competitive games, fighting games are usually just 1v1. It's one mind against another. And
fighting games such as like Tekken, Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Tekken, Smash Bros, Street Fighter. Those are real popular ones. Okay. There's a lot of games in the genre, especially as of late. It's become a very popular genre, I guess, in like this new like Twitch era. And with esports blowing up, a lot of tournaments are getting streamed online. But I digress. The way game theory works in fighting games is, say I'm playing Edom in Tekken, and say the match starts, and I dash up to Edom, and I throw out a particular move that is...
There's not a third person in this room. I'm Prince Atamayo, just so you know. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, say I throw out a move that leaves me neutral on block, meaning I recover out of the move the same time that Edom recovers out of his block stun.
Okay.
Now we are in what's called a 50-50 scenario. I have the opportunity to follow up with another move. Edom also has the opportunity to either follow up with a move of his own or react to what I'm doing. And the goal of this exchange is to get the advantage. My goal is
advantage isn't like leverage, like
leverage of the map. Like, not map, but leverage of the match. Whoever wins, 50-50 exchanges usually is the player that would go on to dominate the round.
Okay.
Whoever is really really good at winning at 50-50s. So that's the key, right? Winning 50-50s means that you're in like your opponent's head. You have both players are guessing. Okay. You're essentially guessing. You're guessing what your opponent's going to do, and you're going to do a move that you think would counteract that.
So if you play it long enough, I'm just assuming, you play long enough, you can start taking or making educated guesses?
Yes, educated guesses. Not just wild guesses. Educated guesses.
But that's after, like, experience and playing for a while, I guess.
Yeah, you have to know your opponent really well.
Yeah, like habits and behaviors.
Yeah, and that's why I particularly really love fighting games. So yeah, 50-50s, you have to react to what your opponent's doing. And that's where it's kind of like the whole dominant strategy comes, because if you know your opponent really well, there are specific things that you can do that you can...
It helps you make it a win-win situation for you?
Yeah.
Or closer to it?
Yeah, closer to it. Not every exchange is one-sided.
Of course not.
Yeah, sometimes you'll be...
Probability.
Yeah, like sometimes, you might have the advantage after the exchange. Sometimes you might have disadvantage. Sometimes it might just be set back to neutral again. This time, maybe there's like a sort of like a pushback. So it's like far away neutral, so where the 50-50 scenario is ended. But it's still like a neutral scenario, so that no particular player has control of the match yet.
Okay.
So diving a little bit deeper into this, there's also a specific sort of 50-50 mix-up called option selects. And these are a bit more complicated. These are things that are not technically intended to be in games. It's kind of stems from maybe like a sort of a bug or an oversight on the developer's part. But nonetheless, it's interesting because what option selects are, say, let's repeat that scenario me and Edom had. I dash towards Edom. I throw out a certain move. After throwing out this certain move, I sort of input a follow-up action that would simultaneously cover 3 potential scenarios.
So a counterattack.
Essentially, yes.
I mean, that's how, in my ears, I don't know about our listeners, in my ears, it sounds like a counterattack. But continue.
It's like me doing a move that covers most, if not all of my bases on what you're going to do. So it's a little difficult to talk about this without bringing up specific examples. So say
it sounds like probability in the sense of percentage of if he does this.
Yeah, it's like
likeness of me getting damaged, likeness of me attacking back.
Yeah,
the 3 sections.
Yeah. So to kind of bring in a specific example, in Street Fighter, I believe Street Fighter 4 is where it had this. What a lot of players would do is they would do a jump in, and then they would do like a heavy kick attack with their jump in. If the opponent blocks the jump in, let me back up a bit. They would do that heavy attack with their jump in, and then immediately after do an input buffer for a follow-up attack called they call it the Dragon Punch, which is like a sort of uppercut invincible move. It's a little hard to imagine without knowing the game in particular, but for the people who do know Street Fighter, it's the Shoryuken move. So yeah, you do the jumping attack, you buffer the Shoryuken. If your opponent blocks the attack, then the Shoryu automatically... If they block or get hit by it, the Shoryu automatically comes out. If they dash backwards... Actually, no, I'm getting mixed up. If they block the attack, the Shoryu doesn't come out and they're safe. If they get hit by it, the Shoryu does come out and it's a follow-up combo. If they backdash, the Shoryu also does not come out and they're safe on landing. Those
are 3 options.
Yes,
okay.
Those are 3 potential things that Edom could react to what I'm doing. But myself, I'm only inputting 1 action.
Okay. Less effort to cover all probabilities.
Yeah.
Okay. Or more, not less. It's more efficient effort.
Yeah. Again, this is not necessarily something that's intended to be in these kinds of games.
Yeah.
It's like exploiting a bug. But
so it's a loophole.
Yeah. Essentially, it's a loophole in the game code.
Okay.
But it kind of makes its own sort of metagame. And it's really interesting to watch at like high-level play.
Interesting. What about metagames? Like, what are topics about metagames that you're interested about that relates to game theory?
Metagames. So when I think of metagames, I always think of, getting into your opponent's head. It goes back to, what I was just saying about the whole 50-50 mix-ups. It's like reading your opponent and reacting, well, not reacting, but sort of guessing what they plan on doing, and then vice versa, they're guessing what you're going to do. So the key to metagames is obviously coming up with the dominant strategy. Kind of predicting your opponent's habits and having that sort of best answer for all kinds of scenarios. Sometimes you may take a loss, but it's like a lesser loss than, say, if you were to go with something else. And maybe the gains aren't as big of gains as other sort of actions you could have took, but it's less risk. And yeah, that's how like meta usually works.
That's so interesting how like you brought that all together and how it relates to what I'm interested about game theory.
Because you're interested in something very. It relates to game theory, but it's a very, very different application of it.
Yeah, it's a very different application. It's competitive game theory, which is more related to business and psychology and understanding your market and your competitors.
Like, so how about you get into that?
So like game theory, at least from a business standpoint, it's basically like even if a company rationally follow their own interests for their business, the best outcome that they can reach with their competition is by cooperating. Like, even though if they go, say they want to advertise at a lower budget and their competition notices that and they're still getting more from that low budget, their competition is going to go low budget. And say it's vice versa for a high budget. They'll do the same thing. But then if they come in the middle and try to find like an even price, there's no price leader, especially when I get to the topic of types of competitions. There's no real like movement in the market because they're trying to make as much profit without like screwing each other over, which then leads to my next topic: types of competition. So types of competition in business is perfect competition, which is like harvesting, like oranges or strawberries. You can't really mess with the price market in that type of competition because if that supplier's kind of make a consumer pay $4.50 a unit, and the other supplier is doing $3.50 a unit, they're going to go to the other supplier. It's almost like the same type of strawberries. Like, you know, there's so many people, and it's such an easy business to open. You just have to grow food.
So with perfect competition, does that also imply that like everyone's on equal footing?
Pretty much, and it's so easy to bear entry. You know, I guess I should get into fundamentals about market, like basic understandings of market variations. Like when you have a market, there's a number of products, there's control of prices, there's bear to entry, and then in some markets it's harder to get into than others. And that just dials back to perfect competition, how it's easy for bear entry because all you really have to do is have a plantation or a farm and you grow and you harvest.
So is perfect competition something that like people who really love capitalism, really, like that's kind of like the end game with capitalism? Like
It's
having, like,
more of
perfect
an industrial revolution type idea because we're going more to a technological era. So like now competition is more about innovation. But I'll get into that. I'll get into that more. So the next type of competition is a monopoly. I mean,
we all heard about this.
You know,
You've all played the board game.
Example is like McDonald's and Burger King. Right? It's the same type of product, just a little difference. Like difference in name, a slight difference in price, maybe like 98 cents or something like that, 99 cents. But it's a monopoly. Like they're like the top fast food chains in America. They're mostly similar. Or you can do would it be Chick-fil-A and Popeyes? Or is that a bad combination?
I'm like just thinking, for comparison's sake?
Yeah.
They offer things pretty different. Like they both are known for their chicken, but in very different ways. When I think of Popeyes, I think of like
I think the difference is their customer service. Quite
that's
frankly,
also big.
That's like the biggest thing for me that stands out. But I can see them as a comparison, at least in my opinion. Many people probably think that's different. And then it goes into type of monopolies. One type is a monopolistic competition, which basically is low barriers to entry, and basically what I talked about, the McDonald's and Burger King. Another example would be like furniture stores. You see the same product almost every furniture store, they're just branding it differently. And then another type of monopoly system is I'm going to mess this up. I've been messing up the entire time. Oligopolies.
That's about right.
Yeah. So oligopolies are basically high barriers to entry, but like few at the top, few companies at the top control the market.
So in like layman's terms, right? Monopolies are like you have like one sort of business that towers over everything else. Oligopolies, even I'm messing it up.
Exactly.
Are you kind of take that one dominating company and kind of just like make it a group.
Exactly.
That's essentially.
And in the group, it's like, say what's going on now with social media, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the top dominant social media platforms that everybody use,
and everything is just well below.
Exactly, well below, and they're just almost damn near startups compared to them. So, but times will change. They're not going to be at the top forever, but they're just controlling the market right now.
Remember what happened to MySpace?
Exactly. See, but like how competition avoid price changes and oligopolies is they work with non-price competition tactics, which means they work on their value and how they provide service in a unique way compared to their competitors. Especially because like oligopolies, it's high barriers to entry. So it's like a lot of new startups and businesses can get into that market because it's not like a monopoly, like where there's just top dogs in that market, and it's very hard to enter that type of market and try to build from where they're coming from.
Yeah, that high barrier of entry.
Yeah, exactly. And then another way that businesses try to stay on top or get to the top is price leadership. I guess one example would be like laptops, like HP, Dell, Apple, Lenovo. Is it A6?
Acer. And then you
Acer.
have Asus.
Asus. Okay, yeah. So say Apple moves their price, Samsung or Dell are going to move their price when it comes to laptops or tablets or phones. So, or not Dell, I guess Microsoft.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Exactly. So, and then I actually want to tie back to what Brian introduced us is what relates to business too is the prisoner's dilemma and how that relates to business, because business uses the same tactic except it's called payoff matrix. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically a payoff matrix is, let me get the diagram out. I know we don't have our videos out yet, but I'm actually showing Brian a diagram. There's 4 squares. Brian's actually vertical. I'm horizontal on the squares. And then we just have prices in the squares. So in the shade, you'll have Brian on the top left corner. He has $200 under his price of profit. And then I would have $200 on the price of profit on the top left. And then the bottom left, I would have less profit, which would be $50, and Brian would have more profit, which would be like $300, and it'd be vice versa for the top right. And then the bottom right, we'd break even because we'd find a even price that we both agree on.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like how the prisoner dilemma works with if you cooperate and do not snitch.
Yeah.
If you don't snitch, like if you cooperate in the business market and you find an even price where you both make the same amount of profit.
Both parties make the more profit.
Exactly. In the long run, at least. Now, this is just a simplified version of it. Not business market always use this tactic, and it's very hard to anticipate what your competitors are going to do. That's why I went into probability. Like they go percentage and probabilities. Like the best percentage will give you the best assumption what your competition is going to do with their price. The best example is if you go out and you see gas price changes and you look at the competition like Shell and BP.
That's a whole nother topic in its own.
Yeah, but like that's just one of the examples of payoff matrix. So yeah.
See, when businesses aren't cooperating, the consumers win in the end because they have less profit, but we, the consumers, are dealing with lower prices. Is that correct? Depends
on the competition. So, say one competitor decides to keep their price at the same price. Let's go with stores, retail stores. Target,
Walmart. Walmart and Target.
Target wants to stay with their price, and then Walmart decides to drop their price.
Yes.
For a sale. Like, Thanksgiving or Black Friday sale.
Yeah, yeah.
And for some odd reason, Target is like, we're so good, we don't want to do a Black Friday sale.
Yeah.
All the consumers are going to go to Walmart.
Yeah, of course.
Like, what? Are you serious?
This is something that I feel like something very similar that has happened with it happens a lot in the tech world. One in particular example I know, this is me kind of pulling out from like some of my niche examples, right? So you have Intel, who makes processors, and then you have like their main competitor, who is AMD. For people who really are into computers or like building computers, you know that Intel is like has been top dog for many, many, many years. Basically, any laptop you buy off the shelf comes equipped with an Intel CPU. Most people who build PCs or like workstations, gaming workstations, often go with Intel CPUs. However, recently, AMD has really shook up the market by coming out with what they call the Ryzen CPUs. And these CPUs really specialize in this bang for buck sort of appeal to them. They have more cores than their Intel counterparts. They generally have better performance in most cases. And they're priced much, much lower than the Intel counterparts. And Intel, I guess, initially weren't really too fazed by this because, hey, we're Intel. We're already established. We already have all this market share. We're not worried about what AMD is doing. But within recent times, that narrative is starting to change. Ryzen is getting more and more popular. More laptops are starting to use AMD CPUs. And Intel has not been impressing with their latest lineup of products.
This goes to the example of Apple. I'm going to screw it up every time. Apocalypse. And this is the category that it will fall under. Laptops, CPUs. They're similar products but not identical. They work under uniqueness and innovation. Mm-hmm. And that's just piggybacking off of the dominant strategy.
Yeah.
Is what they want to use to manipulate the market in their favor. Mm-hmm. It's like a one move for every move that the competitors are going to do, or at least three of the moves, and maybe not every, but three of the moves. Just going back off Brian's video game example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, that about wraps up what we have to say here. We could go on about game theory. You know, people have written full-length books.
Exactly, and we were just touching the surface.
Yeah, this is the very, very, very tip of the iceberg.
Exactly, and we were more so touching on our interests about game theory. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's so many different variations how game theory is used in our daily lives that we probably don't even notice.
Yeah,
we
it's all subconscious.
Exactly, we research only so much. Like people probably go way more in depth. Like Brian said, people written books of like hundreds. Probably
people have written book series on game theory.
Exactly, hundreds of pages about game theory. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if you listen to this podcast, please reach us out on social media. My Twitter account is Nigma _RM. And my Instagram is p.nigma. That's p.nigma. Mm-hmm. On Instagram.
And you can find me on Twitter at Brian D. Leifer. That's BrianDleifer. I don't really have a Instagram account right now. I've basically been doing my social media exploration on Twitter nowadays. So, you know, you can hit me up there.
There's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, having so much like social media activity, I don't know. You missed
it. Can definitely corrupt the mind. That can be a whole episode topic of its own.
Exactly.
Media literacy.
You lose out so much on life when you do that. So I don't blame you. Mm-hmm. But until next time, listeners, stay well, stay healthy. Thank you for watching N.Cast.
Thank you for listening to the N.Cast as well.
I said watching, didn't I?
Yeah. Hey, they can watch us on YouTube. Technically, you poof up the video on YouTube, you're watching us.
Yeah, but we don't have a visual yet. And
I
have such foresight of visual visual production on our podcast that I'm only doing listening right now.
We can put up JPEGs of ourselves. That's watching us.
Okay. Obviously, I didn't mean to say watching. Thank you for listening to this. Until next time, peace out.
Peace.